A very good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for clicking on to the January Outlook edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It is Saturday, it is the 29th, no, it's the 30th, and I hope everybody is safe and well. Before we get into the video, would you do me a favour and hit that like button, let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on markvoganweather.com on YouTube. Also, share with your friends and family, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. So let's get right into it. December has played out pretty well, actually, if I'm being honest with you. So basically, we're going to look at the article that has been published. There is a link in the description below on markvoganweather.com here. So December follows October and November as being a very wet month. It started off cold and dry, then turned very mild, but also very wet. Getting the theme that we're seeing over recent months with regards to the wet, we're seeing cold, we're seeing fluctuations in both the positive and the negative Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation here. I think we are continuing to see that trend taking place as we go into the new year. The month overall coincides quite well with my December outlook. I actually score an 8 out of 10. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with that. But before you make any kind of comment or statement or anything like that, read back the December outlook before you make a call on that, because I do very much strive to provide accurate forecasts, accurate information, and also an honest opinion on the type of weather that we see, the forecast versus the reality. Throughout the majority of 2023, now there has been flaws back at the second half of winter last year. It was a good December, it was a pretty decent January, then it turned on its head in February, then we've seen a better period during the course of the spring. Summer forecast, if I'm being honest, was probably the best that I've produced so far with regards to a summer forecast. And really, September, October, November has played out pretty decent, actually. And December appears to have done the same thing. And I've given my reasons why I think that is the case. But this was the 2 meter temperature anomalies week 1 of December. Very cold. UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, bitterly cold. The north and the west of the continent was well below average for week 1, very much above average across the southeast of the continent here. But you notice as the MJO rotated into phases 4 and 5, typical traditional warm phases, we've seen the rise in the temperature. We also seen the increase in rainfall. As we have seen late October through the first half of November, we're seeing an increase in rainfall. And I go on to later say, could that be a sign of what's to come in January? We'll wait and see what actually takes place. The reasoning behind another decent monthly outlook, the mid to late November period, we had an amplified phase 1 into the MJO, which resulted in a firmly negative Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, and cold across Europe. As expected, the MJO continued to progress eastwards through the tropics, but rotating through the warmer phases of 3, 4, 5, and even into 6. So, as the cold arrived, it also left, and the jet stream over both Pacific and Atlantic wakened up, pushing a lot of warm, moist, ocean-rich air eastwards across North America and also Europe. My thinking was that towards the all-important Christmas-New Year period, if the MJO happened to continue its eastward rotation back through phases 7, 8, and 1, then the return of colder was likely. And I think you could argue that we're in this battle zone, so to speak. There's nothing perfect when it comes to forecasts and meteorology, etc., etc. I think the overall idea has been firmly decent, at least. You can see here that the latest run of the GFS ensemble has that MJO becoming more amplified, so away from that inner circle, the null phase. And the further away you get from the null phase towards the highly amplified situation, that tends, in my opinion, to correlate to a stronger influence in the mid to high latitudes of the northern hemisphere here. So I do think that strengthening of the MJO phase 1 then correlates to the below, and the below is phase 1, high pressure over Iceland, low pressure over Europe, and less settled across the southern UK. After briefly entering the null phase or less amplified state, it's once again becoming stronger. The more amplified equates to more influence towards the pole. Due to the previous comment, I would expect a slackening off of the polar jet over both ocean basins and renewed period of large-scale height rises over the northern hemisphere once again. And you can see here, this is the GFS ensemble. So you've got going from strong positive back to strong negative once again. Here's the extended GFS. You can see here that this is the 7-day increment. So you've got, as we press through, and I know it's not overly clear, but generally speaking, we're seeing a weakening of the negative over the North Pacific and the North Atlantic. That indicates we're weakening the jet stream, and when you weaken the jet stream, you're increasing the potential of height rises further north. And as we go in the days 7 to 14, we're starting to see a weakening of the Aleutian low, the North Pacific low, but we're also seeing a bit of a westward shift of the high over the North Atlantic and Greenland here. And you notice by the time we reach day 14 through 21, which is the period between the 10th and the 17th of January, we've got a ridge now over the North Pacific up into Alaska. We've also got a fairly strong ridge over Iceland, over Greenland. So there's your phase 1 MJO right away. And as we continue to press through the second half of January, we have got that positive over the North Atlantic and Greenland representing a negative NAO signal. You can see 2-meter temperature anomalies for the GFS extended indicates below average temperatures. Northern Europe, warmer than average, Southern Europe, and colder than average across the UK and Ireland as well. So I believe anyway, and we'll wait and see what happens down the road, but I think we are going to see a trend to colder, nothing necessarily extreme, and I do think the response will come towards the end of week 1 of January into the middle portion of the month and beyond that here. But the 30-day ECMWF extended has that negative over the UK, the positive over the North Atlantic and Greenland, extending over the northern half of North America here. That, again, coinciding with the GFS ensemble, is a negative Arctic oscillation, negative North Atlantic oscillation. There's the trough over Europe here, and you can see for the 30-day period, so this is the 20th of December through the 27th of January, we've got below average temperatures across the UK and Ireland. Remember, this is a 30-day anomaly here. Look at Scandinavia, look at Western Russia, warmer central, southern, and central southeastern portions of Europe here. So I believe the active phase 1 response only properly impacts the 500 millibar pattern as we progress through week 1 of January, and the colder push only kicks in between the 6th and 8th of January, maturing mid-month, say from between the 10th and the 20th of January. So what about the southern stratospheric warming situation here? We've had a lot of attention on that in recent times. This is what I go on to say. As for what's happening with the 10 millibar or upper stratospheric situation, the strong Eurasia to pole warming has begun. The question is twofold. One, do we see such a deceleration of the mean zonal winds to a point of reversal, which in brackets constitutes a true southern stratospheric warming event? And two, if so if that happens, is the result a displacement, a split, or a complete collapse of the polar vortex here? All these ifs, buts, and maybes are still there, folks. But these are all important questions. I believe we see either a major displacement or a splitting of the PV rather than a complete collapse. Keep in mind that even with a major SSWE, 70% of these result in significant UK, Ireland, and Western Europe cold. So 70% of all major SSWs result in UK cold and snowy pattern. What actually is a major SSWE? It's a strong warming or wave breaking within the stratospheric layer, which causes a slowing down of the mean zonal winds, which circle the polar vortex, usually spinning above the pole. The strong warming from out with the Arctic forces the cold PV core to become displaced, and as we're observing now, is leaning towards the North Atlantic and Europe. Hence why we've seen so many nacreous clouds or polar stratospheric clouds above our heads in recent times. You can go on to see exactly some of the expert information that we have out there on Twittersphere. So the warming is strong enough, if it is strong enough, can force a 50 Celsius temperature rise within about 48 hours over the polar region, with the wave breaking becoming strong enough for the typical west to east winds to flip back on themselves and reverse. The warming within the stratosphere causes the stratospheric layer to expand, which then forces the troposphere underneath to contract. The contraction of the tropospheric layer then forces pressure to build at 500 millibars or within the lowest 18,000 feet of the atmosphere, ultimately triggering a negative Arctic oscillation and often a negative NAO. The whole process, if stratosphere, troposphere coupling is successful, takes bitter cold out of the stratosphere into the troposphere and then away from the Arctic towards the pole. If, and it remains a big if, we see a major SSWE and all of the above happens, the response comes typically 2 weeks after the zonal winds have reversed. It takes time for all the energy to propagate downwards through the lowest two layers of Earth's atmosphere. There could well be somewhat of a baton exchange. So this is important as well. It could be a baton exchange between the strong phase 1 of the MJO, which then I believe will deliver a semi-cold signal for the UK, Ireland, Western Europe. We may see that exchange over to the SSW if we see that taking place, and the strengthening of the cold pattern over Eastern North America, Western Europe, then continues through the rest of January. The very wet conditions during particularly October and early November may have been a hint of the cold spell late November into early December, and I wonder whether the most recent wet spell of very wet conditions could yet be a sign of colder weather to come. So this is the overall backdrop as to why I think the pattern is going to be somewhat colder as we progress through the month of January. And all in all, to summarize, I suspect a colder and drier than average January for the UK and Ireland and all of Northern Europe, including Denmark, Northern Germany and Poland, the Baltic states, and Scandinavia, including Finland and Russia, warmer and wetter than average across Southern Europe. We shall wait and see what happens. Recent months has been quite successful with regards to the monthly outlook. We shall wait and see. With the big test coming up with both the MJO and the stratospheric situation, will January turn out colder and drier than average across Northern Europe, including the UK and Ireland, and warmer and drier than average across more southern portions of Europe? So it's all to play for, and I encourage you to keep it here, right here on markvoganweather.com, on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe, and let's watch and see what happens with regards to the coming weeks ahead. We'll see if I'm right, or will I have an egg on my face at the end of January? That remains to be seen. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I'll be back again tomorrow with the global weather and climate report, so stay tuned for that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.